It only takes finding one guy like that to completely change a program. Back surgery at 21, career's over. Um, and moved back home after getting my degree and fell straight into coaching at Wallace.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Switch Up Sports. I'm Mighty Q, and today we are doing another coach interview, and we've got the honor of having on Coach Elliot out of Jacksonville State, otherwise known as Jack State. And we're going to bring him on today. We're going to get to know a little bit more about him and his program, but bringing him in now, Coach Elliot.
Hey, how are
Coach,
you?
I am doing fantastic. I am nice to meet you because this is actually our first time meeting. I know we were just kind of spoke a little bit, just a quick get to know each other. But where you're from, where you grew up playing, all the fun intro stuff about yourself. What should some people know about you?
Yeah, I grew up in Coleman, Alabama. Um, Small town. If you're fairly familiar with Alabama at all, I mean, you know where Coleman's at. But to all the out of state people, it's about an hour above Birmingham. Everybody should probably know within the state should know where Birmingham, Alabama's at. So
Okay.
Coleman's about an hour above Birmingham. Um, Grew up playing little local municipal courses. Nothing fancy. We had our country club in the city, but it was not anything too crazy to brag about or anything. But just Southern boy growing up, play a lot of golf. Kind of some limited access to some things, so more so growing up on the golf course rather than on the range. Sneaking around the members and stuff, trying to stay out of their way. But um, got my associate's degree from Wallace State Community College. It was right across the street from my house. I had family that worked there. That was always kind of an internal plan, is just go to Wallace. I knew the former coach there for a long time. He was good friends with my grandfather. Um, got a scholarship to go play for University of South Alabama for Ben Hannon after 2 years at JUCO, um, and did well at JUCO. All-American 2 years in a row, won conference both years, freshman of the year, and got to South Alabama and uh, blew out the back completely. Back surgery at 21, career's over. Um, and moved back home after getting my degree and fell straight into coaching at Wallace. The previous coach had passed away. Um, I had gotten word that there was potential for them to close the program. At the time, prior to my takeover, the program had been to 28 consecutive national championship events,
Wow.
and didn't make a whole lot of sense to me for it to close. So that's where I got my start with coaching. We continued the streak. I stayed there for 6 years. We went to nationals all 6 years. Became a top 7 program in the world, or in the country. Then my wife's mother had gotten sick with cancer, so I moved to her hometown, a little over an hour away, for almost 2 years. I drove about an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half back home, and then just doors started opening. Jacksonville State, I had a friend that took over the women's program. He called me. He said, "Man, you need to, they're really doing some special things here. You need to come here. You need to be a part of it." So
Heck yeah.
he called me. I interviewed, got the job, and ended up being about 50 minutes closer to my house.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it's really been just one blessing after another, really.
So what was the back surgery that you had?
I had a double microdiscectomy. I blew out L3, L4, and L5S1.
Oh wow, wow.
That just uh, a little. I take half the blame for it. I think uh, stubbornness on my part, and most athletes will relate to that.
Right,
Just
right.
if someone tells them they can't do something, they're going to push, and that's natural. And I think that's good for any competitor that is worth being on a team or being in the realm of competition is going to respond that way. But another part of it is we were doing some exercises at the time with the strength and conditioning coach there that is no longer there.
Mm,
But we were doing some stuff that was not beneficial for golfers.
yeah, that tends to happen too often. So is something like that affect how you see coaching, or does it affect how maybe you're working or training with some guys, or like does it just kind of roll through some stuff that you think about? Because I mean, I know, growing up and playing sports as a kid, like I didn't really ever think about, oh, like I'm gonna coach this way. Like I was just worried about playing. So like having an abrupt ending, having surgery on your back, like did that change the way that like you would maybe coach someone, or like is there something that you did earlier on that you still like have in the back of your mind of like, well, like this is like maybe something that could help. Like how does that kind of play into where you're at as a coach now?
I mean, I understand that your strength and conditioning, regardless of what sport you play, is equally important to your development, especially with where things are going in sports across the board. But I'll kind of keep it golf specific. With just the size that these kids are getting to now and the length that they're hitting the ball, and that it's physical fitness is playing so much more of a factor into recruiting than anything. You know, there is more restriction on what kind of threshold of yardage that a player hits it that you have a cutoff now. Like I know for us, really, I mean, we're not really considering anybody that cannot get it to 300 yards. Just for where we're traveling, the competitive courses and the teams that we're playing against. I mean, we have to have length in order to score. But uh, after going through that in school, I had never worked out before. Like I was a skinny 6'1" kid, like 140 pounds, and I started to see the results when I got to South of what working out can do for you. Um,
Okay.
I mean, I'm proud of myself. I looked good, but I didn't realize what kind of damage I was doing. I had never been sore from strength and conditioning, so I didn't know the difference between soreness and internal pain. Um, so after going through that and having so much better of an understanding, kind of diving in a little bit to some TPI stuff just for my own knowledge whenever I started coaching. Um, I understand the benefits of it, but all in all, the end goal of the day is to be able to play, period.
Right.
So now that I'm here, we have strength and conditioning coaches. We have great GAs that come in, and I think we actually have like the new strength coach specifically for our program trained Olympians. So they're coming in. We cannot wait to meet them. Um, but we meet at the beginning of the year and we go over primarily a lot of core work. We understand we have to have strong butt, strong legs, strong core, but we can get that without so much heavy weight resistance. We can
Right.
get that with extended reps, tension from band work, and we do a lot of that. And now, of course, we will incorporate some very light deadlift with the hex bar, a 45 on each side, something that is more, it's extremely controlled and you're able to explode from the ground rather than trying to just lift a whole lot of weight. Um, so, but that's pretty rare. That's kind of over into that's when we're looking into off season building. Trying to really get someone to gain some length. But everyone that we meet with, they understand we're not gonna. As a coach, I'm not gonna keep you from doing your job, but I want you to understand my priority is the team. My priority is that they can come to workouts, be productive at practice, and then play in a tournament and
Right.
compete. We can't do either one later too because stage one is hindering us. Then we got problems.
Exactly. So does that even play into when you're out there on the course and maybe you're on the range, you're going through a practice session? Do you have like a good amount of your guys that are more feel guys versus some of the other guys are more analytical and they want to dive more into like the little nuances and they use all the terminology, we need a supinate and pronate and be here at this angle, or you just have some guys that's just like, well, I just need to kind of feel my arms go low left. Like, do you kind of have a good mix of that, or do you yourself kind of
Yeah,
tend to go one way or the other?
I I think me personally, I was a lot more feel. I think that probably I probably prioritized that in my recruiting, or probably not prioritize, but I think when it comes to recruiting, I think I probably more naturally see that aspect of a player before seeing something else. So I think my recruiting trends towards the players that are very field based. Fundamentals don't necessarily have to be like your picture perfect golf swing, but I like finding the guys that just know how to score. Um, I think it also comes with just the area that you kind of recruit in, especially, you know, when you start dipping down into some international recruiting. Like our women's team is kind of trending on more like the Scandinavian route, the Danish and Norwegian and Swedish. They have an extremely structured background, um, which I love it as well. I mean, they are on time, they are up, they understand exactly what they're doing. It makes it very easy to coach, but sometimes it can kind of cross the lines as a little bit robotic like, and
Yeah.
uh, I like to just have I love finesse. I like game time decisions. I like someone that can be extremely aggressive all day long and have enough finesse to get themselves out of trouble. And I think the more finesse you have about yourself, the more aggressive you can play the game in order to have opportunities to score.
Yeah, and I felt like sometimes I mean I know I would fall into this myself is you almost get into that where you're not playing golf, you're playing golf swing, and then you
Yeah,
get in your own way, and then that impacts your ability to score. And like you said, if it's just a hey, feel this one out, okay, hey, we need this one, move in this direction, just this is what it needs to be, and we know feel isn't real, but at the end of the day, if that's the way that your brain is gonna, make the two of them connect, then whatever we need to do to get it done. And so you kind of briefly touched on something that tends for recruiting in terms of, you know, guys are now able to hit the ball a lot farther than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But the difference and shift with the technology, both in the golf ball and in the golf clubs, do you see an impact or something that's going to be coming down the line of maybe not, I guess, a full regression in tech, but there's only so much land out there. There's only so many more golf courses that can get put in a year and the expansion and all that stuff that's going on. Do you see some type of regulation coming down the somewhere down the pipe of hey, the golf ball isn't going to be as engineered as much as possible. Hey, we're going to maybe start to take down some of the CCs and the drivers, so that way we're just going to try to limit some of this distance. Because I mean, you look at, I mean, yes, the guys on tour, but now that even tour average has gone up by so much. It's no longer at 260, 270. I mean, it's now just continued to climb and jump. And is that something that you see going to ever get pushed on regulation side?
I I mean, I do agree. I think as far as progression of the equipment, like there's only so much more that you can do with it. I think people are starting to notice a little bit more, like the new models of things that come out. It's just a different design, like a different crown design or something like that, different coloration. Not as much is starting to change with how the equipment looks as a whole. I don't think the world of golf is ever going to quote unquote take a step backwards. I think things are just going to start trending a little bit more into, you know, people playing TrackMan golf. Really, like I know there's like some Nordic international tour where I mean guys they're playing tournaments on TrackMan, um, and I think that's where the future of the game is going to go. Like you said, with we're running out of land. There's only so many courses you can put in. There's only so much you can do with equipment. But I mean, you dive into the world of tech, and I mean, it's limitless options. Uh, and I mean, you can make a course 10,000 yards if you wanted to. Uh, but I think that's kind of where it's going to go. Now, I don't think golf as a whole is just going to stop being golf and switch over to that or anything. That's not what I'm saying. But I just think it's the TrackMan side of things and people being able to play simulator golf is saving us from having to produce so much new equipment for the people that are not necessarily in the realm of competitive golf. Um, it's, but I mean, hey, who knows? I,
Exactly.
I have no idea. Next year, just something could come out and be completely revolutionary to golf. Who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
we're going back
but
to wood clubs.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
But
it's because I mean I was just looking at how Augusta has changed and the different land that they've had to purchase over the years, and then you look at what Oakmont is going to look like next month, and
mm,
you know it's it's going to be a test, but it's always been a long course, and now a long course with 5 to 7 inches of rough alongside of it. What do you think the U.S. Open is going to look like this year? Do you think the PGA is going to get its revenge tour on all the players being able to score these last couple weeks with, the Byron was a little bit of a cheat with lift clean in place for 3 days. You give those guys a soft golf course and lift clean in place. I mean, there's no reason they're not throwing darts all 3 days. But I think the U.S. Open's going to get kind of brutal. What do you think it's going to look like?
I think they will. And but we always think that every year. Really, every year we're always thinking, oh, they're going to get revenge on previous years, somebody scoring and this and that. But I think there's only so much that you can do with making a golf course difficult, as far as from maintenance standpoints, without making it unplayable. Like
Right.
7 inches rough, like that's. I mean, good lord, you can lose your ball in 3 inches of rough, easy. I mean, 7 inches, like you can't even see the club head. You can't even see a portion of the bottom of the shaft. So, I
Exactly.
think that's get a little bit excessive on what maintenance crew can do. I just think they need to let the natural factors of just the weather take care of things. And weather makes golf courses completely different. Now, I mean, we can't control the weather or nothing like that, but you know, if it is, I think it would be great for it to be the U.S. Open, and we get some super heavy wind to come through, or maybe not making it as easily a lift clean in place option. Um, you know, just you can take your. I mean, we very rarely play lift clean in place in Division One. Like, I mean, if we get some rain, they'll say, all right. I mean, You can take your casual water relief, but
Right.
a mud ball, and that is what it is. Uh, I do think here lately, when it comes to major championship events, it has been a little easier to get the ball into your hand. Um, but there's only so much that they can do with a golf course without it being goofy golf. And that's the thing they'll regret doing. If they ever get it to a point to where the players are complaining that it's just goofy golf, there's no you're opening a door that's going to be real hard to shut media wise. And
Yeah, that's a hard train to stop because then the public influence that it can have on it, which I think the public enjoys a good kind of bloodbath to a degree, and seeing those guys be real golfers and hey, I hit shots that look a lot like that, and versus the oh wow, what a picture perfect shot. Oh wow, another 8 footer that never left the center of the cup. Wow, this another perfect shot. And I definitely want to see like like a 2 over winner, just someone who grinds it out and just barely is right around par all 4 days and is just like able to hang on. Like that would be awesome. But
yeah,
to go with that, what would you say is your favorite aspect of golf?
um, from from the game itself, just playing it, I think uh, wedge play short game area that's my all time just favorite aspect of the game of golf. But I think as golf as a whole, and what I mean by that is like taking in the fact of the competitive side of it, the mental side of it, and the tournament atmosphere. I think it is just the edge that you can see on the best players in the world. Um, they're never just defeated. Uh, they can have a bad week, and the best players in the world are just they just get back to work quickly. I mean, I don't know. People will say, "Oh, they need some time to soak this in," or they need some time to reflect on this and that. Those guys don't care about that. It's a bad week. There's no need to think more into it than it is. It's a bad week. It happens. Let's get back to work. You know, the all the all the air in their balloon never really gets let out. Now, some of the other guys, they have a bad week. They may not show up for 2 or 3 more weeks. They're at home, they're grinding this and that. I love seeing someone have a bad week and play the next week. Um, and I mean, I think we all can relate to everything that has gone on with Rory McIlroy and stuff. I think for a long time, with all that expectation over his head, he was sulking in those losses, and I think that's why the time period went by as it did of him just not being able to close that door, which I was super happy that he won. Like I really think there's a big weight off of his shoulders for winning the Masters, completing the Grand Slam. I could see him. I don't think I could see him doing it again, but I could see him winning 5 or 6 more major championships. Throughout the rest of his career. Um, I think he's really going to have a takeoff year this coming year. But yeah, I think just the competitiveness of it, and being able to get a chance to see the guys that are different from anybody else. That's what is so fun about like recruiting for me is I like watching guys. I like traveling. I like seeing all these different styles of golf. But you'll come across this one player in particular, and you can look them in the eyes, and They don't care about anything else. Nothing. They don't have to say anything to you. They don't have to tell you how good they are. You can see it in their face that they're the only goal is they're here to win.
Right.
Uh, and that's where the special things come from is people like that. And we talk to a lot of coaches, and they're everybody's on the same understanding. It only takes finding one guy like that to completely change a program. Not saying that you can't build a program around a guy, but it only takes one guy to change the standard and a second guy to buy into it, and then it just starts stacking like this year after year. So I think I'm honestly very comfortable. We had a moment like that for this upcoming year recruiting, and I'm really, really excited to watch what this team is going to do that steps in here this year.
Heck yeah. That's kind of the exciting piece about it. Like that is the really exciting piece because as you said, it's one and that one guy, whether it be, maybe the difference is, hey, he goes and hits 20 extra 3 foot putts at the end of practice every time. And then another guy just adds that little bit. And then how quickly that snowballs into just such of all that positive momentum flows just as easily as negative momentum. And so many people are so quick to, hop on that negative train and, oh, I'm going to take this week off and next week off versus just like, hey, like this is your job. Like if you have a bad day at work, it doesn't just mean that you don't get to show up tomorrow. Like, no, you do. You wake up, you go, all right, that was yesterday. Let's take a breath. Let's get back after it. So that was the favorite side of it. So then let's look at the flip side. If you could change one thing, it's got to be one thing. What is it? What are you changing from the game of golf?
Uh, um, I think a simple answer to it is I do think the divot rule should be changed. I think you should be able to move your ball out of a divot only in the fairway. Only in the fairway. Now, I mean, because the rough is not an ideal scoring position. There's a reason that it's cut at a different length. It is a minor penalty area, pretty much, is what a rough line is. So I think if you're in because they categorize as fairways, it's your closely mown area. And I think if you're anything in a closely mown area in something that is imperfect as far as a divot, something that was not caused by you, but from someone else, I think you should be able to get it just outside of the divot in order to have the opportunity that you've put yourself in initially. You've done your job on the previous shot to get into position, and then to not have the opportunity that you expected. It's it really kills any momentum, um, and I think that I cannot stand uh, the walking with the tour guys or even the college guys doing putting the AirPods in and doing your little in the moment interview and stuff. I just kind of think that people doing that on the course, like televised and whatnot, maybe it should pay their respects to the fact that they're competing for more than just the trophy. I mean, they're trying to make some. They're earning their living. They're providing for their families out there. Um, but on the flip side of that, though, I mean, it is good to hear like the in the moment experience of these guys and their thoughts. While they're playing.
Yeah, and I think that is almost combating like the YouTube stuff. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
like I definitely want to see more personality of the players, but like they're working and they're
yeah.
here
Do it.
playing for a lot of money. Like if you want to ask him, oh, what happened on that shot on the second shot on 7? Yeah, that could happen after he's off the green on 18, and you can dissect the entire round. You can walk through every single shot. You do not need the that right there. But the divot one is still to this day probably one of the dumbest things that I, because like you said, it's a man-made thing, and it's not like, oh, I saw that sand divot in the fairway back on the tee box. No,
Yeah,
I
right.
saw the fairway, the rough, out of bounds. I did my job, and now you walk up, and then, like you said, it almost kills some of the momentum, whether it be, oh, it didn't even get filled in, and so now I'm at the front part of someone who took, a shallow or really deep grave, and now I can barely get it out, or just anything else that goes with that is just beyond beyond belief. So this will go kind of back towards the favorite thing, because this is a question that everyone asks, and it's the, hey, you've got a 9:45 tee time. What course are you playing, and what three guys or just three people in general are you bringing to play with you?
Mm. Um, I would like to go back to Bighorn Golf Club in Palm Desert, California. The reason I want to go back there is because that is that's where my career ended.
Gotcha.
I didn't get to do that event. I got pulled mid-event, and because the when those discs in my back completely blew out, it was all of them were a centered herniation, closest to the inside of the disc, favoring like more towards my stomach.
Okay.
So it's the closest point to the sciatic nerves, and it pinched off both of them. So both of my legs went numb pretty much from just underneath my pelvis down. And that was a pretty disheartening sight. Uh, but if I had to get out and play with three people, I would take my dad, of course. He would love it, even though he'd shoot a million. Um, and I think Boo Weekley and Kevin Kisner.
Okay. Boo Weekley's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
And he is from he plays some at a Burning Tree Country Club in Decatur. We've seen him out there quite a bit. I've met him before, but he is just I love the way he carries himself about the golf around the course. I know a lot of people think that he's just some country bumpkin that he just goofs off and kind of embraces the persona of being super southern and not caring, but that's just who he is. And he has fun. He knows that he is so privileged to be able to do what he's doing, and he's not going to put added stress on having to perform and it interfere with his ability, his natural ability to just play. He just embraces it. And I think that is a beautiful thing for probably some of this younger generation to learn, and there's a fine line between doing that and goofing off. Um, but being yourself on the golf course, period, is the best way to get results.
And I think that might be the perfect spot to wrap it up with the be you, play your game, have some fun, and just go out there and play some golf. Coach, I love it. That was awesome. Uh, Pleasure to get to meet you. Where's the best place that any recruits or any other people that can come and find you? What's the best way to either get in contact with you or your other other fellow coaches or people at the university? Any other ways to get in contact with you or to set other things up? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, they can find our all of our contact info on the Jack State Men's Golf page. We also have an Instagram account, Jack State Men's Golf and Jack State Women's Golf, that they can follow and they can keep track of us. We post. consistently on there. It has stories that follow, our previous year's progression, practice, workouts, home course. I mean, everything. So our SIDs and me and the women's coach, we do a good job of kind of keeping everything very up to date. This place is really growing. Jacksonville is a small town, but it's great for anybody that likes a small field with everything just kind of at arm's reach. The campus is just all put there together. It's beautiful. The facilities that we're building are beautiful. All the new housing facilities. I mean, it's really growing, and we have a ton of support around here. Ton of support. Community loves it. So it's just it's a heaven on earth kind of experience here.
That's awesome. I love to hear it, Coach. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have to do this again. And maybe I'll even have to swing by, Jacksonville State. Make sure I'll swing by, see the campus for myself. I did see that you guys have, some pretty nice facilities, so I might have to come out there for a little practice session of my own. But I appreciate you coming on. Pleasure to get to meet you, and like I said, we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.